are, if you've got a dog at home, can you be on mute? Or any children running around, that'd be quite good. I want actually to be pretty debating discussion. What are people's issues? How are people solving things? All that sort of thing. And realizing that it's a complete moving feast at the moment, and nobody really realizes what the answer to anything is, I think, but all emerging. So I think what would help, if you do want to pitch in, then please do just say your name before you come on, and then we can just have a bit of debate. But I see there's a number of people who I've known for many, many years and not spoken to ages. So Sadie, I do owe you a phone call conversation at some point in the next year or so. So lovely to hear that you're on here, mate.
Yes.
Were you on the Sport England call?
No, mate, I got bumped off.
Yeah, you and me both. I think I was on there and then got thrown off. But yeah, it'll be something to do with physical activity and supporting the sector, something like that. I don't know. But yeah. Got a very rough agenda that we put around on the email. So we've got employment, contractual management, government support, and the future. And I've sort of done a fair bit of communication with government bodies and other people in the sector, and clubs as well, just to see what the feel is, as this doesn't come along every day of the week. So really just on employment, and clearly now government have made it pretty clear on areas of employment, the furloughing of staff at a company level. And obviously British Airways are going to be furloughing a fair number, I would think, as well as yesterday the announcements around self-employment. But it appears to me in the sector that our observations are that people like freelance coaches working for private companies, coaches working in schools, plus also then the whole tutor workforce that are out there. We know of a couple of tutors whose work has just disappeared for the next 3 months. What are people finding around employment, and what issues are you having for those that are running organisations in terms of how you're addressing the employment issues? And secondly, are there any issues around that, those casual tutors, coaches that are working that might not be eligible for the self-employed status? Any? Oh, I'm hearing myself come back to something. Any issues that are coming up? How are people dealing with it at the moment? Anybody want to kick us off?
Hi, this is Marcus Capel from Pony Club.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
Hi there. Good to see you. Thanks very much for getting us all together. We're just in meeting as a staff discussing this, and we're meeting as a board of trustees later to share it through. We are exploring the options of furloughing. We have the issue of our central office, which is a very small staff, which we can carry as we are. We're actually working flat out with lots of different activities, keeping Pony Club busy. Lots of things are still happening online. People are developing this position. Teams meetings for us have been established for a few months now. The issue for us is probably our centres as small businesses, as well as the coaches that we have, who, like you say, they don't have possibly they can't access what the government is offering. So we're looking how we can support them and how we can help them generate income at a time when we can't physically do the activities. So that's our current position from a youth equestrian.
Yeah. Any other solutions going on? Are there any people who have got real challenges around sessional coaches and part-time coaches, or people who are working self-employed, who've not declared stuff, or who've got to suddenly put in their annual returns in the next 4 weeks?
Hi, Simon. It's John Keating from Swimming.
Hi, John. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. You?
Yeah.
Just really working on it all today. So jumping on this call was just to sort of listen to what everyone else is doing. But I think the furlough thing, we have some challenges as to whether, and I need to go and find out the detail of this, is whether a unincorporated club is classed as a business, and therefore can they actually go down the furlough route or not. So a bit of a headache with at the minute, so I need to try and find the detail of that, but ultimately we are urgently trying to find that information, because for us it's all about those self-employed coaches and what they need to do, and make sure we've got sport to return to, really.
Yeah, the sort of feedback I've had elsewhere is that unincorporated clubs are not businesses and therefore do not qualify for that. The coaches that are, if they're employed through them, if they're employed through a third party, then they would be able to be furloughed through that third party. If they're not, if they're just being paid by the unincorporated body, they would probably have to drop into the benefit system. That's but do you know what, John? That could change on Monday.
Yeah, I know. It seems to be changing by the hour, and that's it's trying to keep track of everything that's being announced. So
I think this is one of the challenges with the sector, is that there are so many coaches that have worked, that have been paid in various ways. So let's leave it at that. That really, this falls into, and I think the government clearly had great difficulty in identifying who was self-employed. So they've had to go to just self-employed, submission of accounts, etc. But it's interesting that they're paying on profit, not on turnover, which I find quite interesting. Up to a certain level.
Yeah. Okay.
So Gary Lineker, as a self-employed radio TV presenter, I think probably falls out of the £50,000 profit. Well, I hope he does anyway. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Simon.
Has anybody gone through a furlough process at all?
Hi Simon, Mark from SLT. We're just about to. We're issuing.
Simon, it's Ash.
Hi, Ash, how you doing?
I'm all right, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, just sorry, a quick thing between me and Ash. I think they should actually void the football season at the moment, so the Villa stay in the Premier League. I think if we agree to that, then we'll move on.
Absolutely, we totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah.
What sort of process have you gone through in identifying the furloughed people then, Ash?
Okay, so I think it was fairly simple for us in terms of identifying the people for the furlough, because when Boris made the decision to close the centres, essentially we've got no work for those individuals who work on that front line, other than we might have been able to keep some of those fitness instructors to create some videos that would keep something going online. We've had some of that, but the 80% and up to £2,500 is more important in terms of securing the organisation's return back to some sort of operation at the end of all of this. Right. So what we did was we looked at business critical roles that over the last week, communications with, and anybody that wasn't able to support that, we said are furloughed, and we agreed that with the trade unions.
Yeah.
And the trade unions have been very, very supportive. Unite, Unison and GMB. Our employees and want is to ensure that we can get that money from government. So all bar around 24 people from the 480 strong workforce were furloughed as of the 23rd of March, because over the weekend we still asked people to come in until we were told stay at home. Now until today we made a decision as a management team that of the 20-something people who were continuing to work, we would reduce that down now to the absolute essential number of people that we need to continue to run the company, still be able to provide comms to staff every day, through the process, and monitor what's going on with government. and there's a letter that will go out to all staff today that have been furloughed for them to read, detail their individual names and that, and return an email to us which will confirm their agreement to being furloughed as part of the process. And
very difficult to judge because obviously you're not in contact with all your staff, but is there, what's the two things really, perception and feeling? You know, the perception from those that are being furloughed, the pre-redundancy, is it I'm being made redundant? What have you got? And therefore the feeling and the perception.
No. That's a really good question. I think the feeling is from the majority of people who we've spoken to who are being furloughed is they're relieved because the government is supporting an 80%, up to £2,500 package. And therefore they're relieved that we're able to support them in that way. But also what this means for us is the more people that we can furlough up to keeping the minimum running the company is that the level of reserve that we so there is an element of relief from people. But what we will do is I've asked our finance director to model for me now a package of all the people that have been furloughed. If we were to get 80% back, and then we needed to make up either 10% or 20%. What does that mean to the company in terms of the next 1, 2, 3 months? And because what we want to do is for our colleagues, we want to be as fair as possible to them, because this is not as a result of something that they've done. This is a national emergency, and we're working through that. The other thing that we're doing is we're in detailed discussions with the trade unions and the local authority, and the local authority are keen to second as many of our people over to the local authority to work on critical roles within the authority, be that adult social care, driving roles, etc., for which they will pay their full salary, and so there will be no detriment to the individuals. If they do a job that is higher than the level of their salary, they will pay a higher level of salary. Right. So that would help us offset some of the costs and everything, for them going across to those roles, and it would mean that we would claim less from the furlough process that the Lord Chancellor, the Chancellor of the Exchequer has put in place. Yeah,
and also it gives purpose to those people for doing something rather than just like we're all doing here, sat at home staring at screens, etc.
Yeah. So that's what we've done. In terms of self-employed, we were looking at that, but at this stage the government have made some announcements, and we don't feel that at this point we can do anything more than what we've already done. For people who are casuals, PAYEs, we believe that's covered by the Chancellor's original announcement around covering under this process. And what we will do is look back through over their packages over 12 weeks and ensure that we get the maximum for them, because essentially it's our job now as the employers and everything to get the maximum that we can for these individuals.
And I think that's a good principle. Any other examples around the place of people? Sadie, how is it in active partnership land?
It's okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yeah.
Hello everybody. We've had the assurances from Sport England that grants for primary role and for children and young people's funded programmes will continue, and they'll be quite flexible. So as far as I'm aware, there are no staff that are employed through those funds that need to be furloughed. The issue is, as the gentleman was speaking before, about casual staff. And I think for us, that would link to our people that are delivering some of our satellite club work. So they're employed through a third party. So I was quite interested to hear how they could be supported. Sport England are quite flexible in allowing us to maybe continue to pay them should they have been delivering between now and the next 3 months. But my question would be is, well, if you pay them now and they're not actually delivering, how do you then pay them when they start to deliver? Because the grant will have gone and we don't have 2 lots of money. So, is there a case for, while the activity's been suspended, if you have an underspend on satellite clubs, are you permitted to use that to pay them? I would have thought probably not. I don't know. So we're seeking a bit more clarity on that. So I don't know if there are any other partnerships in the meeting at the moment. I think John Byrne might be on there. Might be able to shed a bit of light if you're there, John, at all.
Hi, Sadie. Can you hear me?
Hi, mate. Yes, I
Hi
can
there.
hear you.
Hi, folks. I've just joined you. Unfortunately, I was blocked out of most of the Sport England seminar, but what the bits I did pick up was, the bits I did pick up was a huge degree of flexibility in finding sort of solutions. So I think I'm delighted that message is coming out really strong and loud and clear. So I think that for me reassures me. I think it's up to us to come up with flexibilities. I know that we're working very closely with our public health team because we've got some programs that we're running alongside our CCGs, and again, I'm hearing nothing but flexibility. So I think solutions, and yes, it is about the short and the medium term, but I think we've got opportunities now to sort of try and find alternative and creative ways of securing the future workforce, but at the same time recognising that there are some parameters around the lottery as well that we've got to be cognizant of.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Just one thing from me, and apologies, I've joined you guys late because the Sport England one ran over, but the bit that I was picking up, and I don't know if anybody else is on here had heard about are hearing about what's called the hardship fund, but has anybody got any detail on that? And are we expecting that on Monday?
I don't know.
Sorry, don't know, John.
Right, okay. Thanks.
Sadie, could I just ask a question? It's Ash Ray from Sandwell Leisure Trust. I was the one that was speaking earlier on. First of all, thank you very much for referring to me as a gentleman. I've never been called. But appreciate that. Just very quickly, these coaches, are they PAYEs or are they self-employed?
I don't know. I'm not close enough to that. I'd have to probably ask my project manager. I think it's a combination of both. Because
if they are PAYEs, I would furlough them.
Okay, thank you.
Because if they are PAYEs, you'd furlough them. And if they've been doing certain amount of hours and everything, then the government have said that they will actually cover those costs over those 3 months of March, April and May. So if they are PAYEs, then it's going to be an easy process to go on the online portal, and furlough them. And then you've got at least 80%, up to a maximum of 2,500. And that would then retain your grant for when you actually return.
Thanks. That's really useful. Thanks, Ash.
All right. No worries.
Hi, Sadie. It's Daniel from Kent Sport.
Hello.
Hi, we just had an interesting conversation with one of our providers, a boxing charity. And what we're going to try and look at doing with them is actually doing some of the recordings. They're already doing them for the open community anyway, but for the satellite clubs that were running, we're going to look at trying to get the exact same coach to do some recorded sessions specifically for specific groups that were running already, and try to get them at the exact same time, and as I say, the exact same coach to keep that familiarity with the coach, particularly, and we're piloting that with a youth hub. There was a disability session, learning difficulty session. So they're obviously with them, they're going to be needing a different type of approach and a specific tailored approach, and they've started to build a rapport with that coach. So follow-up call. So we'll try and share that on the active. Once we get some learnings, hopefully they'll be positive, and then we're just going to try and see if we can roll that out further.
That's fab. Thanks. I'll get.
And we'll use the investment in the same way. So essentially, that coach is being paid for that time. It's just a different way. They're not going face to face. They're doing it through the session. But obviously, we just need to work out how can we monitor that and use the appropriate platform to enable us to monitor that.
Exactly, and see who's logging on and actually taking part. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Daniel, it's John Byrne, listening from Rutland Sport. I suggest that you have a quick chat to John O'Callaghan, because John O'Callaghan's done something very, very similar with a local disability charity, and I think that might be something that might save you guys some time.
Is that Hertfordshire Sport? Yeah.
John? Yes, John O'Callaghan. Yeah, that message was for Daniel really, but relevant to all active partnerships.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. It's really helpful. Thank you. Yeah, we'll look into that. As I say, I think they've got the platform there already, this charity, so it's just making it specific to the group that they're already working with and making it a bit of a closed shop initially. But yeah, no, that's great. I've made a note of his name and I'll get in touch. Thank you.
Okay. Looks like we've lost Simon.
I suppose Sadie and colleagues there, what small businesses are you having conversation with, and what opportunities are you engaging with your LEP around the business support that's out there?
Not a lot in Sussex, to be honest, John. I think we've spent all of this week just sorting our team out and doing a bit of forward planning. So, but I do know some of the other southeastern London partnerships have been engaging to look at how their own staff can support what's going on out there at the moment. I think if you have a chat with Paul Brivio in Oxford, they're seconding some of their staff to work with some of their key partners. So it'd be worth a conversation with him to see how that's working practically, because obviously we're only a week or so into this self-isolation, but probably worth a chat with him.
Thanks, Eddie.
Okay.
Hi, John. It's Craig Hanford here from sunny Cornwall.
Hi, Craig. How are you? Long time no see.
I'm very well. Yeah, nice to be back in your company. Just a quick one. I've been doing a little bit of a phone round with some of our social enterprises just to understand how things are impacting on them, and quite interesting. I know not everywhere has one, but we have a school for social entrepreneurs down here in Cornwall, and they have been providing support to social enterprises through. It's really kind of social support at this stage and advice and guidance, but through dial-ins similar to this one.
Yeah, thanks for that, Craig. I know we've done some joint online seminars with our local enterprise partnership and their business gateway support services, and it's both helpful and frustrating at the same time. But I think as information comes out from government and it's helping our small enterprises, and you know, like you guys, we've got lots of what I describe as cottage industries that are the backbone of our sector. Then the fact that we're speaking to them and engaging with them through the new means of these types of platforms has been really helpful, but equally very, very frustrating because we didn't have a lot of the answers and some really difficult, challenging questions where people are 12 or 18 months into sort of business startup mode, and even the stuff from the Chancellor last night isn't going to really help them much. But yeah, it's incredibly difficult. So I think we need to keep on sharing and supporting that sector, those parts of the sector, because I think if we lose that part of the sector, or then we lose a huge big part of our backbone.
Yeah, what I did uncover from a number of them were that, and this may be incorrect. I'm not quite sure of the detail, but a number of them who currently rent office premises was suggesting that they were not eligible for the business grants, business support grants, because they don't own a premises, i.e. they're not paying business rates. So I'm still trying to get to the bottom of that one. I don't know whether anybody else on the call.
They should be able to. It's Sadie from Active Sussex. They should be able to claim up to 3 months rent relief on commercial renting. Okay. They looked into that. If they just pop onto that government coronavirus page or website, there should be some information about that. We're getting information from our accountants on a daily basis, and they seem to have quite a good handle on it. So if it helps, I could share some of that.
That's great.
Sorry, I've just I lost my internet connection at all. I missed all that, so I'm sure it's a pearl of wisdom. But yeah, we had got a sub as well. Natalie was going to take over, but is there anything more on employment and that sort of thing? And I mean, I think that there will be issues about people who've been furloughed and those that haven't, bringing them back in afterwards and all that sort of thing. And when do you defurlough people and all that sort of thing? Any thoughts on that at all? I know it's probably looking too much into the future.
Hi, it's Heidi from the Pony Club, and Marcus has already sort of stepped in. But we are having these conversations, and I know what you're saying, Simon, that you've got this sort of what does it mean to the individual staff? What does it mean to the one that stays on and carries on grafting in other people's absence? What does it mean to the person that's being asked to step away? Does that mean that their role, in certainly for us in our organisation, does that mean that their role they're not fulfilling and they're not useful to us? Does it mean that they're on a future list for redundancy? Certainly, having spoken to all of the staff, because we've been really open and honest about the fact that we are looking at our options, and these are the things that are coming back. It's certainly hasn't been accepted as, oh great, I can get a couple of months at home with the family and switch off. It's definitely been a bit of a fight for, oh no, don't pick me. Perhaps where in other organisations it's slightly easier to see who's not actually able to fulfil their role, whereas with us, yes, there are elements of work that people aren't being able to do, but then can we realign them to other tasks? I think is our biggest challenge, but at the same time trying to cut the costs of the organisation as a whole. It's a massive tricky one for us.
Yeah, I think there's three things that come out. One, operation. I think Ash is probably in an easier position, not easy, but easier position to say, actually, there's a pool closing, there's a sports hall closing, those staff are not needed. But I think what we're picking up is there's the three challenges. One, who do you decide and how do you decide? What is there a chance to spend money and invest in people to actually put things in place for when we come out the other end of this? And the third one is, the motivations and etc. of, member staff. I mean, we've got people who are self-isolating because they're someone in their family has got a serious cough. We've also got those that are, have got kids and all that sort of stuff. So they're very different home environment situations as well. But I think that I'm just wondering whether people are using this time at all to put things in place for when we come out the other end of the conveyor belt, which could be any time between June and September 2024, I think. But so I don't know whether people are spending that time on investing in, looking at putting things in place for coming out the other end.
I think Simon, the honest answer is we've all been sort of been reactive, and we're moving. Sorry, it's John Byrne, unless you're not on sports. Sorry, we're looking at dealing with the here and now, but with one eye starting to shape up for. I would imagine once we've cancelled everything, once we've got the sort of online platforms, and once we've got the sort of innovation started, we can start to think about that. But right now, my priorities are, how can we as a sector support and contribute to the health of the nation, particularly around mental health, and how do we facilitate and support people's physical activity in the home place? So those are the priorities, as well as looking after, in our case, a sort of 20+ team. So I think for me, absolutely, that conversation needs to be had. How do we prepare for the medium? But right now, I think I'm dealing with the how do I make sure somebody's internet connection at home or Teams works for them, and can I get that laptop to that person, and what's happening in my office and stuff like that. So yeah, but I think it's great. I think we should have a dedicated session about that, because we're encouraging your guys. Yeah, let's look at the CPD offer. How do we make that CPD offer much more accessible for everybody? Do you know what I mean? Sure. So one of the things I posted on our team's group this morning was, guys, everyone's walking, cycling, looking at other outdoor activity. How do we build on that for the future? Do you know what I mean? How do we, we had 500,000 people to support the NHS. So there's a real commitment in this country to respond to that. How do we have a legacy from the corona, this virus around our networks? Can we build up our walk leaders? Can we build up our site leaders? Can we do it all online at the moment? You know, and so we have got that workforce that have demonstrated their enthusiasm. Can we pick them up on the back end of Corona and say, thank you for your service. This is how you can carry on, and physical activity being placed front and centre, because in a perverse way, you know, I've never seen so many people out walking their dogs and out cycling and running and stuff like that. How do we capitalise on that, and how do we build an infrastructure that does that? I don't have the answers to that. I just know that we do need to start thinking about it.
I think there's a real issue, John, with people walking, cycling, running, or whatever, but actually then starting to talk to people within a 2 meter area. So I think, you know, people are, you know, making beelines around people, etc. I know my friend who lives in Derby, they've got a huge issue with people going up to the peaks. They're going, don't go, you know. So actually there's a real enthusiasm for this, but it's how is it managed? And, you know, whether we go into a further lockdown, I think is a real challenge. I think you're right. I sense people are putting fires out at the moment and not actually thinking about, I mean, we as a company are thinking about actually, you know, is there education in isolation, so to speak, and how do we maybe think about giving people opportunity to do education while they're isolated? Because I think people, I sense people at the moment are firefighting, but also getting used to playing around with Teams, GoTo, Zoom, whatever, and actually, you know, using up an enormous amount of time on webinars and maybe actually not doing stuff. So I think there's that as well, and also not going stir crazy at home as well. I'd like to move on to the sort of managing contracts, because I'm picking up that because we work a lot with the company, a lot with smaller businesses, a lot of football foundations, a lot of people working who manage coaches in schools, and we're picking up that some of those contracts are not necessarily being honoured. Schools are just going, no, sorry, that's the end of it. No, you know, no longer, you know, sorry, it's not your fault, but we're not going to pay you for the rest of the term. We're not going to, and as coaching providers, when their parent funded after school clubs or their holiday activities that are coming up, what are people picking up in terms of the relationships that, whether you or if you're an active partnership, your partners are picking up in terms of the honouring of contracts? I mean, Sport England have made it very, very clear that they're honouring contracts, which is absolutely brilliant for the sector. Anybody picking up that about secondary contracts or commercial contracts? I know the FA are losing an enormous amount because they're not able to put on the FA Cup and England internationals, etc. What are people picking up in the sector? Because those contracts are really quite critical to keeping, you know, the ecosystem of the sports economy going. Any observations at all?
Hi all, it's Natalie Harris here from Kent Sport. Just regarding contracts, it was interesting. I've had a conversation with a number of very concerned school games organisers who also deliver partnerships, and they're currently in that situation where the schools are turning round to them saying, well, look, you're not going to be able to deliver now, probably realistically until September. And so they're having the conversation around, well, actually, we're not going to pay you because you're not able to deliver. Now, appreciating the way that a lot of those partnerships are set up, that is proving very problematic, and also in terms of the planning and delivery for next year as well, from September onwards, because genuinely so much is unknown that they're not even able to put in place some of that planning. But it will be interesting to see what happens with that in terms of those contracts. And I would imagine, and apologies for my ignorance here, but I would imagine it depends on what type of contract the partnerships have with the schools. And actually, from a school's perspective, quite rightly, you can understand them saying, well, you can't physically deliver, so actually, why should I be paying you?
What's the employment status of those workers, Natalie? Do you know?
Do you know what's interesting? I think it differs from partnership to partnership. I'm sure it's similar all over the country, that the way that the school games organiser network is delivered is very different. But some of them are set up as CIC, some of them are just staff within the school who deliver out to other schools. So it might be a school to school contract, as I say, it might be a CIC to a school contract. So I think it does vary from area to area.
And you know, go back to films and things, Follow the Money and whatever. where's the money stopping? Is there going to be a school that's building up a stock of money that they're just not distributing, or are they hanging that back for then potential delivery in as and when things get relieved in September?
I think with the schools it'll be an interesting one, because a lot of that funding is delivered through the primary school sport premium. So I wonder whether schools might be waiting to see when the next announcement is, if there is going to be another announcement. And I guess, again, from a school's perspective, they're thinking, well, actually, this is an opportunity for me to hang on to a bit of cash that I might not have in the future. Obviously, if the funding's extended, you would hope that they would continue to buy into those partnerships. I think, understandably, from the partnerships perspective, they are worried that they may well have to lay off staff, depending on how they're set up. And then they haven't got a network of staff to then go out and deliver in the future.
Do you think this is a terrible thing to say, do you think they can be bothered to go through the furloughing process for those?
Do you know what, that is a very good question. I think because of the nature of the way that some of them are set up, and they're very small. They generally have 3 or 4 members of staff. Because and again, apologies for my ignorance on this, but I would imagine it, depending on the way they're set up, that they could quite feasibly furlough their staff.
Yeah.
But whether it's a lack of understanding, and it's probably something that they need to look into more. I guess this is the same with a lot of very, very small organisations, small coaching companies, and a lot of deliverers. They probably don't at this point, similar to, I would imagine, a number of us, have a real understanding of what it actually means and what they can actually access.
Well, the government portal's not open yet, and the small business thing that was announced yesterday, that's going to take a month or so to get anything sorted, because that's quite a complex system by the sound of things. I wonder how can we as a network help, because I maybe my socialist principles are, let's help the little people, because the little people are going to suffer in this, not physically, but the smaller. How can we as a network consistently help those? Because I think what Sport England have done is said, yeah, right, we're guaranteeing the coach who works, ex primary school, who's no longer got work and just hasn't got a clue how to go through the benefits system, or they're small business, or they with a company, or they're furloughed, all that sort of thing. I wonder how can we as a network help that? Any ideas?
I think what would be really helpful, sorry, it's Natalie again from Kent Sport, I think would be super helpful. So it would be great to go somewhere, and this might already exist and I may not be aware of it, but to go onto a site where you can click, I am a sports coach, what does that mean for you? Or I'm a school games organiser and I have a partnership, what does that mean for you? Appreciating that takes work, but I think the information's out there, but it's not very easy to access for, as we say, those small organisations. But ultimately, it's about who that person is, the role that they deliver. And that's, if you're a sports coach, you just want to go to one place and it tells you this is what this means for a self-employed sports coach. But I don't know whether that's something that Sport England might pull together, or actually some of that might come through Youth Sport Trust in relation to the school games organisers and some of those partnerships. But that's what I feel like the sector needs, just some really clear
UK coaching as well, I think. Yeah.
Sorry,
somebody else.
Yeah. It's Ali Clements here. I work for Leicestershire and Rutland Sport as around economic growth. I work quite a lot with small businesses. And following on from what John Byrne said earlier, we work closely with our local enterprise partnership. Excuse me, sorry. Hope it's just a tickle.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't start coughing or we'll all start worrying.
But the business advisor that the local enterprise partnership can advise everybody on what help is available. And even on the Sport England webinar earlier, Tim mentioned that people should be looking at the government support for their business. And I think if we start helping people in the sector realise they're self-employed, or they're running a club, or they're running a business, they then identify as that, not just as a sports coach, not just as an event organizer, and in their business sort of capacity approach business advisors on what they should do, because there is some help available, but there's also the opportunity to get some business mentoring about how to forward plan on what to do over the short, medium and longer term on what would help them become sustainable, because we don't actually know when the to normal process. Some people are organising mass participation sports events. We have no idea when they might be up and running again. And when clubs go back, will everybody be going back to exactly the same timetable and schedule that they had before and employ the coaches in the same way? I think that may be unlikely. We just don't know. And I think I'm just sort of sharing that there is business advice out there, and perhaps we should be directing people to it.
Yeah, I think the sports sector sometimes is slow at going to the general sector. I think it wants a sports specific solution. Whether we can offer that, I don't know. Certainly, what I'll do, I'll take back some actions from this and put that through onto the old Sport England email system and see whether we can.
Hi Simon, it's Bob from Snooker here.
Hi Bob.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Good, fine, thanks. Just one further thought on that is that we found that a lot of snooker clubs that are affiliated to us are finding it difficult. They're big businesses. They've got other things like beer and that kind of stuff to think about. But we found that there is one club who's sort of gone through every process, and they've said to us that they're happy to be a point of contact for other clubs that are affiliated to us. And we're also going to do a feature article on that club for our website on Monday. So it's, and they've gone through everything covering furlough payments, how to check your insurance, how the government grants are paid, emergency loan schemes via your banking providers, how to minimize overhead such as cancelling Sky, turning off cellar and coolers, cancelling rental agreements, how to lock down your club and what to do with beer lines, contact lenders requesting payment holidays, and you know, a few other things as well. And they've offered to, they've been through all of that last week, and they've basically said we'll help other clubs. You know, they haven't really, you know, our affiliated clubs haven't done a huge amount of sharing before, but this is an opportunity for them to do that, and we're going to do that spotlight on that club next week. And that's just a further idea really that we can do maybe as national governing bodies or as regional authorities.
That's brilliant, Bob. I think what I'd like to do, I mean, we've not got, you know, we've had an open invite for this as well as people from our database. What we will do is send around a link of this recording, and also if people have got, you know, information, if they could email that into me, myself or Natalie or both, and then we'll put that round to people who, you know, who are on our database and put it out on LinkedIn and all that sort of thing about this, which we'll do a little bit later. Any other issues coming up around managing contracts, honouring of contracts, or that? I think there are huge issues around that. Commercial contracts, putting on a television, then should you be getting the sponsorship for that? So I think there's you know, there's big issues there on major events, but I'm more bothered about local participation and contracts like that. Are there any coaching providers that are here, or coaching companies that are on the call that maybe can give us some information?
Simon, it's Michael Ward here. I'm from Charlton Athletic Community Trust.
Oh, hi. Yeah, ideal. Yeah.
Look, we're quite a considerable large community trust, so we're okay in that our core delivery. So I'm head of football and sports development, so all my programs stopped. So every school I've spoke to around contract, they've said we don't need you, we're not paying for you. There's one or two that have kind of committed to the end of Easter and have given us an extra kind of couple of weeks when we didn't deliver, just to help with coaches' salaries, and especially those casual staff. But in terms of our contracts with our local councils, with the local youth services, Premier League, EFL, at the moment, the talk is that will continue, which is really good for us. So we've been able to kind of manage our cash flow and work through that process there. It's a difficult way. I mean, for us, what we've found, it's just been that kind of that relationship. It's being the right person to call at the right time and to find out how they can support from within their organisation. So Royal Borough of Greenwich is a key one for us. They've honoured what they owed us and have paid us up front for some programmes. We've actually, my whole team's now out doing food drops and taking wellbeing calls. Our whole job role has changed, but to support that, and we've been able to going forward. That especially for myself, that's been my biggest challenge, is to say, well, especially when delivery stops, how is looking through the contracts and saying, well, actually, yes, you have got to pay up, But then obviously, do we take money now for the rest of the year from schools, but then ruin actually they wouldn't let us back in from September because they will go find another provider because they feel they've been hard done by. So managing that process has been quite difficult.
And yeah, and do you know what? You can't win with that.
No, definitely not.
Any observations? Any other thoughts? Because I sense with some contracts, people are just as you just said, you know, that there's a certain length of time that people will be patient and supportive, and there's a point in time where they're going to say no, sorry, that's the end of that. And I personally, I can't see us not being on lockdown or something like lockdown until, you know, August, July, August. If the peak's going to be in the middle of May, then we're going to be up and down, lockdown, unlock, lockdown, etc. I think for months on end, but that's just a personal opinion. Okay. Anything more that anybody wants to raise about managing contracts or the contracts that you've got? Because clearly some of that's going to affect employment, particularly casual staff. Okay, we'll move on to government support, and we've sort of alluded to it quite a bit, really. There's, you know, a significant amount of information out there. The actual mechanisms I don't think are quite smooth yet, which is not surprising as it's a bit of a disaster, etc. Interesting, our offices in Birmingham are next to NHS payroll, and we've basically been asked if they can take up all our car park spaces because they've just brought in significant more staff because they're a huge increase in staff. So I think there is an opportunity to actually help furloughed staff or staff that have, you know, who are casual, who are not getting income, to actually put them into employment opportunities if there are any. There's a lot of, you know, one-on-one recruiting, etc. You know, supermarkets recruiting, etc. But in terms of government support, there's clearly around the loans, the business rate grants, etc. for small business, and that appears to be quite flexibly applied at the moment, but we don't know how that's going to go. So if you're closing your office, is that deemed as being closing your shop, so to speak, and therefore you can get a rate relief? So that's still up in the air and being discussed. So if, for example, you have an office space and you're closing that office space, can you then claim rate relief on that? So I think that still is being debated. We're getting different messages back from different local authorities from our sort of information on that. Then clearly there's the furloughed and the self-employment status. But I think generally businesses are battening down the hatches and then looking at that balance between making sure they don't incur extra cost, but also what are they putting in place to when they come out the other end. And I think that's my concern about the sector, and the noise I pick up from the clubs we've spoken to through Club Matters and through my swimming connections are that they're worried about, you know, whether things will run, whether people will be really keen to get back into things as and when they start, because it's likely to be a staggered start. Any thoughts on the sector needing more information around government support at all?
Yeah, hi Simon. Craig Hanford here again from sunny Cornwall. Long time no see.
It's sunny in Birmingham as well, so don't knock it.
It's always sunny in Cornwall. Yeah, just I'm not really at liberty to say too much, but I had a bit of input into the Sport England hardship fund that I think they'll announce probably on Monday. It's a very, very quick turnaround. I think it was an overnight piece of work. I guess as much as I can say about that, there are plans that will address community grassroots sports clubs, and will provide grant support for any of those that might be suffering through loss of income and have ongoing fixed costs.
Yeah.
Is my understanding. I don't know the details because it was just I just provided some feedback and comment, but I don't know what they finally decided in terms of criteria and how that will roll out. But my understanding is it's for the next 3 months to get grassroots clubs through this period that might be suffering a little bit financially.
Was there a discussion in that process? And obviously, you know, issues I think with club support for clubs. And I chair West Midlands Swimming, so we're getting clubs saying, "Oh, can you help us with salaries and wages?" which has dropped off a little bit in the last week, obviously with furloughing and the self-employment status. But the real dilemma is there are some clubs that have built up cash reserve, and this is what a cash reserve is for, a rainy day, who are live by hand, and a lot of those are, I sense, are clubs that hire facilities, who have, you know, are paying a lot of money into local authorities, etc., etc., and actually probably don't. I'm stereotyping them, but probably don't have that cash reserve, and so there's a real dilemma about whether we should support clubs that have not been necessarily that well run recently. I'm also conscious of cricket clubs that are just coming into this is where we get loads of money because the bar gets moving in the summer. And so actually at the moment, they're not particularly cash rich.
Yeah.
But was there any of that sort of debate at all?
Yeah. But on both of those fronts, there was some commentary on clubs just coming in, as you say, just coming in, or sports just coming into the summer season, who would be expecting probably an influx of membership fees, and now may not get them, and they'll have grounds to maintain, pitches to maintain during this period. So there's ongoing costs there. Although I don't know whether that's essential work or not, so I don't know whether that'll be able to go ahead. But anyhow, yeah. So there's definitely some talk around that some clubs, some activities may be more needy at this point in time than others.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the other part of your question?
Well, the other issue was whether there are some clubs that have clearly built up cash reserves for a rainy day, and there are some that live by hand to mouth, and and actually are more at risk.
Yeah, there was a little bit of talk around supporting kind of what you're getting at,
sure.
and that were well run. A little bit of chat around. In fact, part of the feedback I fed in was without taking advantage of the situation too much, but was this an opportunity to encourage clubs to get their governance arrangements in place, which would include things like financial management, reserves, that kind of stuff, and maybe even some of their requirements around safeguarding equity, that kind of stuff. So I guess a little bit like it feels a little bit tight, but a little bit like the government are doing with the self-employed sector. It was kind of we'll help you, but there may be a small price to pay for that help.
That wasn't even veiled, was it? It was.
And this, on the positive side, this may be an opportunity to move the system and the sector forward a little bit during this moment.
From a Club Matters point of view, we're interested in the push this year very much on Club Matters. It's around legal structures and business planning and getting your club right. And I think, I hate to say it, but this is an opportunity for clubs really to look at it. And this is where you need money for a rainy day, because nobody knew this rainy day was coming along.
Yeah, I mean, what I think what this episode has done is exposed some of the fragility in the system and in the sector, which may be a good thing, because it gives us an opportunity to address it and strengthen for the future. So
yeah, I think the worry is, could that mean some? Do you want to just take that issue that you've got with clubs that are incorporated and clubs that are not incorporated?
Yeah,
clubs.
Yeah, I'm still with you. I guess from a swimming perspective, most of our clubs are unincorporated, and that's going to be a real challenge if, but I guess to your previous speaker, actually, that's where maybe the hardship fund, Sport England's hardship fund, kicks in instead of trying to go down that furlough route, because they won't be able to. So,
yeah, from a, I mean, we're obviously, we have a contract with Sport England around club matters, and we're obviously looking at moving stuff online, etc. Would that be welcomed around a sort of online facilitated workshop around putting things in the future, you know, and fighting the fires now? Would that be welcome, do you think?
Certainly from my end, Simon, yes, it would, and it's the sort of thing that we are. It's the sort of thing that we are thinking about already from a Swim England perspective. But actually, to have, you know, contributions from across the sector would make it more powerful. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Any other views on that? No. That's going down well then. Anything else on the sort of government support? Because I think what people were saying earlier, it'd be really useful if you know, if there was a click, I'm a sports coach, I'm a, you know, how to help, but also I'm a sports club, this is where it could help, you know, it could help. That seems to be something I'm taking away from here. Are there any other ideas that would really help the sector, you know, in build confidence amongst people in the sector? I mean, I know John Burney, you mentioned earlier about just making sure that the network are connected, I think is a key thing.
Yeah, Simon, I just picking up on Bob's snooker club sort of stuff, and they're doing that article on Monday. I wonder if we could just use Bob's example there to create an FAQ that's generic for clubs and stuff like that. It strikes me that that's a, you know, that falls into a case study that probably has a commercial, you know, the insurance, the legal, etc. So yeah, we need different scenarios, don't we?
Was Sky closing Sky down for a few months. Yeah,
there are some bonuses then, isn't there? Sorry,
editorial comment not needed. Thank you. Sorry, John.
Hi there. It's Joelle Watkins at Baseball Softball UK. I work with Chris Rawlings and John Boyd, who you may be more familiar with.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
I'm really interested at what everyone's saying, and exactly what the gentleman before me echoed. We're trying to do the same. Well, Chris is trying to do the same thing as Bob from Snooker. So details of that, you know, the very practical list and advice for clubs would be very welcome. So
are most of the clubs non-asset owning? Because I think there's a difference between those clubs that own an asset or significantly long leased, or those that are just rocking in and hiring a facility or using an outdoor area. What are the majority of clubs, baseball, softball, are they?
I can't imagine many are asset owning. There might be a couple that are investing in very small fields, but effectively even our federation members, the British Baseball Federation and the British Softball Federation, don't own assets. The one national playing complex that we that exists in the UK in Buckinghamshire is owned and operated by BS UK and is you know, used and sold out, if you like, to those federation members and other independent clubs. So yeah, goes back.
You're going to absolutely fall into just coming into season and just not able to use or use that facility or generate the revenue from it.
Just a little bit. We've seen everything frankly collapse. To Craig's point, we're predominantly a summer sport, although there is a bit of the sport played indoor over winter, but it's a summer sport. So our venue operates, our outdoor venue operates from March to October, and we're pretty much at 100% capacity every weekend. So we basically lost that from mid-March, and we've got a phased reopening plan depending on if and when we do reopen. But yeah, you can imagine the impact on income. And it's a good point. You know, we went through the opening up process of the complex, and now we're going through the shutting down process. So yeah, but there is a need to still maintain the venue if and when we do open, because you can't, unlock the gates and hope that the fields are in perfect condition. Interesting one.
It would be really useful to share that round, and as well, Bob, if you could share your stuff around, that'd be really useful, and then we can put that round, and whether we put that on Club Matters or put it on Sports Structure's website or just circulate it around, we're welcome. And I think there is some really merging differences between those that are hiring facilities, the asset owning clubs, as well as the sort of informal sector as well that are just participating.
Simon, it's John Byrne. Just on that point, I mean, I think these conversations are great, and I think the challenge for us is, I think there's lots of us duplicating effort. So Bob's doing that with snooker, and colleague there from softball, baseball, and it just strikes me that that's conversations either with SIMSPA partly, but SRA, UK Active, Sport England. We need a sort of a one shared set of FAQs on different scenarios. Do you mean, because for me, and I think in our active partnerships network as well, we're all very busy scurrying around trying to create platforms for online coaching and teaching and working healthy at home, and etc. So I just think there's an awful lot of effort going into creating it for particular scenarios when one of the overlays should be something generic for different types of scenarios, whether it's the asset owning club, the non-asset owning club, the commercial bigger or medium size enterprise, or indeed the small cottage industry type organisation. Now, how we do that, Simon, that's why they pay you the big bucks, and you're obviously one of our leaders. So, Sport Instructions, with all your reserves, sounds like you're in a perfect place.
Oh dear, I nearly swore then, but anyway, no, I'm not going to get hooked into that one. No, I think what we can do, we can go back through Rosie Benson and colleagues through Sport England and just say, look, this is what we're picking up. I'm going to send the recording of this to Rosie and Niall as well. So actually, I think there is something that we can pull together. We've just pulled together a thing about how to run online AGMs and online meetings for clubs. But I think fundamentally, there's some issues about how do you batten down the hatches and make sure that you don't lose silly money, or you can save money to make sure that you can come out the other end of it. But yeah, no, it's very useful, John. Yes. I think that's really key. Okay. Anything more? Move on to the final point. I'm conscious we're nearly on time. We did say an hour. I tried to keep things on an hour. Well, we've gone over a bit, to be quite honest. But anything on the future? And I'm really conscious of what a number of people have said is, God, we've just got to deal with it now at the moment. Anything on the future? Because I spoke to some swimming clubs on Monday night, and they're concerned about, whether people, they're worried about swimmers who are not exercising, therefore will come back into the water a little bit porkier than they went in. They're also worried about parents who are trying to do aerobic activities with their kids and getting knackered, but also they're worried about whether actually the habitual nature of sport and structured sport or unstructured sport people will have forgotten this because they've got used to being at home. Interesting, the deputy medical officer felt that it was a good thing that people at home and they could come back super fit after doing loads of fitness programs at home, which I'm sure everybody's got a treadmill, bike, and whatever exercise stuff at home. But what about the future then? How or is it too early to look at that? Anybody want to pitch in?
If I pitch in from our pony club side, I appreciate everyone's coming from different angles. We have equines to keep fit as well, and we're very mindful at the moment of not promoting any activity that isn't within the government guidelines. But there is the issue of horse welfare and keeping those horses looked after, and that includes letting fit animals down gently, and they can't just be chucked in the stable or whatever. Scheduling all our competition, humans and equines to get fit for competition. We're promoting a lot of the online things like the triathlon series which is the shooting, running, and swimming. These are the silver lining things that actually we're very much all systems go still with the Pony Club, that we're keeping our members busy, and we're promoting through our branches and our centres lots of activity to encourage the value of the membership now more than ever, as well as that premise that you want the organisation to be in a healthy state when things get back to normal. We are reviewing big decisions beginning of May for our summer programme. It looks like activity for us wouldn't start until June. That has a knock-on effect to everything, but we would hope we'll get things in the summer. So that's our position for what it's worth, if that helps anybody.
Super, yeah, thanks, Marcus. Any other observations? Yeah. Okay, I'm conscious of keeping to time as much as possible. I think it's been really useful circulation of thoughts, informations, and actions, etc. And I think, as John Byrne said, you know, everybody's beavering away, and possibly if we get everybody's noses pointing together and bring that together, actually we could share that and be more effective with that. What I will do, we'll take stuff back through Sport England and look at certainly doing stuff around clubs, etc. What would be really useful for us, if using the chat function on here, if you could just put a comment on whether you would like to be involved again, what information you'd like, something like that. We're thinking of running these on a regular basis, because I'm really conscious the sector can come incredibly disjointed, even though everybody's, you know, dead keen on webinars. So it'd be really useful you just put in the chat box, yeah, interested in future stuff, interested in future discussion. That'll be really useful. And also just a one-liner about where you found out about it, whether it's from an email from us or whether it's on LinkedIn or Twitter, etc. That will be really interesting just to know that. So if you just spend, you know, 30 seconds just whacking that in the chat box, that will be really, really helpful. Thank you very much, everybody. Been really, really useful, and I hope that's helped people in their thinking, and also realizing that everybody is in this up to their neck and beyond. And as someone who's got 88 days left of not seeing anybody, speaking to anybody, etc., it's nice to communicate with a few humans as usual. But thank you very much, folks, and stay safe. And we'll probably put one of these on in a week or two's time. But thank you very much, everybody, and stay safe and enjoy the weekend.
Thanks, Simon. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Simon.